Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So as some of you probably already know, I am in the midst of my student teaching experience right now at Grand Canyon University in Arizona. And so today I thought it might be good to go over what that looks like for me, how I'm doing, what tips I found to be useful, and what advice I would share to someone who hasn't started student teaching yet. And so if you are considering being an elementary ed major, if you are already an elementary ed major looking into doing your student teaching experience soon, or if you're just curious to know what that is about, make sure to keep watching this video. At the end, I'm also going to share some advice that I wish I'd known going in and that I found to really helpful in getting me through my student teaching. Just a reminder, this is my personal experience at Grand Canyon University, so it might not apply to other colleges or other professors, other schools, things like that. So just my experience. However, I do believe the process is similar at other schools, at least in Arizona. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. There are two parts to the student teaching experience, and there's the classroom part, you're a student at Grand Canyon University, and there's the teaching part where you're the teacher at your cooperating school. We're going to start by going into what's expected of you as a student in the classroom at Grand Canyon, and then we'll go into the teaching part in a little bit. So starting with the student experience at Grand Canyon University, it's similar in a lot of respects to the other classes you are taking. So there's still the loud cloud form, there's still assignments, there's still DQ questions. However, all those things look a little bit different. To start, the DQ questions are much lighter than I have had in other classes. Normally, I had to post 2 question answers, and then I had to respond 6 other times for a total of 8 posts. For student teaching though, you only have to post 1 answer and 1 response. That has taken a huge load off of my mind and off of my schoolwork and given me more time to put into my student teaching, which is amazing. Probably the best thing and the most exciting thing I found out when I started student teaching is how light the DQ questions are. The other thing is that there's really only 2 main assignments. However, you're going to be submitting parts to them throughout the semester. The first is your step plan. So that is your student teaching form, as it were. You're going to be posting your information about your classroom, your students. Later on, you'll have to create a 5-day lesson plan, a 5-day unit plan. And so that's going to be multiple lessons in the same topic. You're going to have to come up with standards, pre-assessments, post-assessments, and you're going to have to do a video recording of you teaching as well. All of these elements can be a lot if you wait till the last minute. So make sure you're working on it as you go throughout the program. And again, parts of them are submitted in chunks. So you're not going to have to submit this whole thing at once at the end of the year. You're going to be submitting the first step, the second step, and you're going to keep going through. But make sure that you're working on it as you go and not just waiting till Sunday to complete it, because you're going to need information from the classroom you're working in. You're going to have to do these things in the classroom. Your lesson plan will have to be taught in the classroom. So make sure you have good communication with your cooperating teacher so they know what's required and they can help you get it done by the time it is due. The other big assignment that you have to do is a classroom blog and teaching portfolio. So that, again, you're going to be adding stuff to it as you go throughout the program. You're going to need a bio page with some pictures and some facts about you. You're going to need to include your step plan, your observations that are done throughout the program, and just other details. And you're going to be filling this out as you go throughout your experience. The biggest part, I haven't got to this yet, but the biggest part from what I've heard is that you have to do a teaching video about your teaching philosophy. And so, again, I haven't completed my video yet, but videos I've seen in years past but they use footage from the classroom. So make sure that if you're allowed to, and if your students obviously allow you, your students' parents allow you to take pictures and images of them, make sure you're taking videos of what you're doing in the classroom, fun activities you're doing, games, the students working, you helping them. All these things can be compiled into your teaching philosophy video to make it more engaging and fun, and that will just look better for your final grade. So keep that in mind as you go throughout the program, because it's not due until near the end of your student teaching experience. That's it for your classroom experience. Now we're going to go into the teaching part of your student teaching. So the practicum experience is 70 days in a classroom. Most of those days will be spent in observation, but you do need to have 8 full weeks of student teaching. That's about 2 months, give or take. Most people do it in February and March, but obviously depending on your experiences and your school, it might look a little bit different. So for those 8 weeks, you are acting as the teacher in the classroom. All of the assignments, all of the lessons, all of the subjects, you're teaching those, you're handling the students, and you are acting as if it's your classroom. So for that experience, it can be very overwhelming. It's a lot of work. Just make sure you use the most of that prep time when you're just observing to get the hang of the classroom, memorize student names, and build those connections, because you're going to need them later on when you're working with those students more one-on-one. Through this experience, you're going to be observed 4 times by your clinical field experience observer. That's different than your GCU professor. So make sure that you understand the distinction and that you make contact with your observer. My observer has been super nice, super helpful. If I have any questions, she helps me with them. And so I've had a really positive experience with that. Just make sure you know your observer. If you have questions, ask them up front. Also, to prepare for your observations, make sure you look over the rubric that GCU provides. It includes everything that you're going to be graded on for your observations, and by looking at it, you can plan to include those elements in your lesson plan, which will, of course, help your score and help your observer know what you are capable of. So make sure to look into that. Really, really helpful. There have been a lot of struggles I've faced. The 2 biggest ones has been knowing the content and classroom management. With knowing the content, obviously by this time in our program, we've taken all of our content knowledge courses. I've already taken my NES tests, so I do know the material. But what I mean by this is that my teacher, my cooperating teacher, and my school district use very specific language, very specific cues for how they teach it. The methodology behind how they teach is different than what I was used to. And so having to adjust to their teaching style has been a bit of a challenge for me. Memorizing the phrases they use, the phrases the kids are used to. So one thing I wish I'd done to have helped me more with this was pay more attention to those cues while I was just observing the classroom. If I had them memorized, it would have been easier when I started student teaching. By now I've learned them, but it definitely would have made it easier starting out. So pay attention to that. Make sure you memorize all of those cues. They'll help you later. And then there's classroom management. Classroom management, of course, is every teacher's issue, and it takes a while to get good at it. But there are some tips I've noticed that help me when I'm in the middle of a lesson. The first, like I already mentioned, relationship building. If you know the kids, if the kids respect you, then you have a much easier time getting them back on track because they're already willing to listen to you. Knowing names, if you can, memorizing voices for some of your chattier kids, all of that's going to help you get them back on track without losing your train of thought. The other really big helpful piece to this is really good lesson planning. Obviously, we can't be prepared for everything, but if you know your lessons inside and out, then when you're in the middle of something and there's a crisis, you can adapt easily and quickly, and you can change your lesson plan because you know what's happening. You don't want to be that teacher that's looking over at her notes every 5 seconds or so because you can't remember what you're supposed to be teaching right now. Going along with that, a lot of your lessons might be co-planned. In my school district, I plan one subject, my cooperating teacher plans two, and everything else is just given to us by other teachers in our grade level. Because of that, it can be tempting to just read from the lesson plan as you're going because it's already prepared for you. You don't really have to do that much work. I advise against this. Personally, I've found that I am so much more prepared when I take the lesson plans that I'm given and just rewrite them. You don't even have to change anything, but just for me, rewriting them in a way that I can understand and quickly thumb through and see helps me when I'm in the middle of teaching, so that way I don't have to panic or be unprepared. By staying on top of my lesson plans, again, I'm just able to adapt easily. And so I can add elements, take away elements, handle discipline issues without panicking and losing my mind. So that has been most of my tips and tricks. There's one other piece of advice, more of a motto that I'm trying to follow, and I just want to share it with you guys. It's so important, I almost wanted to make it its own video, but I thought it fit really well here. And so that motto is just that you should not be good at student teaching. What I mean by that is not that you should fail on purpose, of course, but don't go into it expecting to be perfect, because that is when issues are going to arise. Go into it with a growth mindset, expecting to learn from it. When I stopped trying for perfectionism and instead just accepted the fact that I was in this classroom to learn just as much as I was in the classroom to teach, my experience and my mentality towards it completely changed. And now when I mess up, and I do mess up most days, I'm not panicked, I'm not embarrassed, I'm not just overwhelmed with failure. Instead, I'm able to see my mistake as just another thing to learn. I'll take lots of notes after my lessons. I will talk to my cooperating teacher and see what feedback she has, and I take it. And I don't view it as me being a worse teacher. I view it as me training myself to be the best teacher I can be. So keep that in mind. Don't overthink it. I know that there's a lot on the line. There's grades, possibly jobs, but just remember you're here to learn. And by keeping that mindset, you're going to improve so much. I've already improved so much from when I started just by having that mindset, taking that feedback and using it in the classroom. And by not panicking and being completely stressed out, I'm enjoying the experience a lot. And I've had a great time so far this year. I hope that your experience is just as good, and we need more good teachers out there. So if you're thinking about going into education, please do. We need more good teachers who are willing to learn, who are willing to work hard and do great things in the classroom. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and that the advice will be as helpful for you as it has been for me so far. If you have any other questions or things you want to hear more about, feel free to leave me a message in the comments section. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye for now.